Over the past couple of days, I've poured hour upon hour into Destiny 2, because getting this review right was important to me. It's not often that a game surprises me, or makes me rethink everything I know about a development studio, or gaming as we know it. Destiny 2, and the critical reception it has received, certainly has done that, but not for the better. I've asked this before, but I'll ask it again here. When did we start praising the mediocre? When did we start giving out participation trophies for an open world game that gets the fundamental, basic mechanics of an open world game right? Destiny 2 has a map and fast travel. And yet, people are acting like this is the second coming of Christ. When did we start praising a loot game for having loot? Or a shooter for having basic, competent, tried and true, been done for the last decade shooting mechanics? Why are we praising a game for having a story, regardless of quality, just because it's better than the game that came before it? Even though what came before it sets the bar so low for story that Solitaire would be an award-winning epic in comparison. Praising Destiny 2 for getting these things right is like praising somebody for using a number 2 pencil on a test, or remembering to write their name, or showing up at all. Destiny 2. Without getting into spoilers for those of you who want to know my opinion about the game, but don't want the plot of the game ruined should you choose to buy it, is designed from the ground up to sell you something, be it microtransactions or future DLC, but done in such an insidious way that you don't realize you're being sold to. As I played through Destiny 2's content, easily wiping the floor with AI too stupid to challenge anyone but a small child whose only hindrance is not intelligence, but the fact that their hands are way too small to properly use the controller. I spent a lot of time bothered by the game. There was just something about it that I couldn't quite place my finger on, but I knew at my core was fundamentally wrong. At the time of writing this review, I've likely sunk 15 to 20 hours into the game, cleared all of the campaign, adventures, and side quests, without any real challenge along the way. Mind you, the vast majority of this was done likely within the first 8 hours. I think I've done all the strikes, and played most of the multiplayer maps, but I couldn't tell you for sure, because there's no way outside of the Strike or Crucible playlist to play these activities. So your experience is entirely beholden to the whims of a mad god, the mad god of matchmaking, who quite enjoys placing you in games already in progress, or strikes almost complete. I currently have 18 individual exotics, with multiple repeats, and an inventory full of legendaries, and all 3 subclasses entirely leveled up. At the time of writing this review, the game has only been out maybe 3 days. And yet, I've burned through the vast majority of content without much effort. For a game about loss, reclamation, and rebuilding, it doesn't take much effort to return the status quo of Destiny 2 back to that of Destiny 1, in all regards that actually matter. By the end of the game, Destiny 2 ends exactly where Destiny 1 ends, only with less choices and less content available to players. I spent a long time trying to figure out how to put into words my issues with Destiny 2. The first draft of this script was actually 13 pages long, and dissected every detail and aspect of the game. But after writing it and recording it, a video that was over an hour long, I still didn't really have an answer. It wasn't the sound design. The music is absolutely phenomenal. It wasn't the gunplay. Gunplay is one of Destiny 2's only redeeming qualities. It wasn't the level design, though many of the Crucible maps do leave a lot to be desired. They seem to be over-designed for PvP spaces, seeming more like PvE spaces that were cut from the game and repurposed for PvP. It wasn't the graphics. I've always enjoyed Destiny's aesthetic, though the laziness in the choice to reuse Destiny 1's character creator wholesale with no updates and additions is where things started to really bother me. It's where this gnawing feeling started to dig at the back of my head. It wasn't the attention to detail. The new Hive redesign, for example, is incredible. And sometimes when you kill Hive enemies, they'll drop their symbiotic worm. Something I felt was an incredible touch. It wasn't even the fact that this really does feel like a large update or a DLC, and less like a true sequel. Calling this game Destiny 1.5 is not inaccurate. But that didn't really bother me. So what was it? My eureka moment came on 2 separate occasions, when multiple people asked me what the entire point of Titan and Io was in the grand scheme of Destiny 2's story. Without spoiling anything, Titan and Io contribute absolutely nothing to the Red War campaign. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't exaggeration. It's the farthest thing. Titan is the location Zavala heads to after the invasion of the city. On Titan, we find the remains of a Golden Age utopia and research facility. You'd be excused from hearing that description and believing that we head to Titan, get Zavala back, and then search the remains of this facility to find a piece of Golden Age technology that will help us in our war against the Red Legion. Upon reaching Titan, we show Zavala that we have our light back, and he goes from, "Fighting Gaul is hopeless," to, "We've got this, damn the consequences," in 2.5 seconds. The whiplash is actually fairly jarring, and for the most part, in regards to Titan's importance to the plot, that's it. Yes, there's Hive and Fallen, and it's some kind of Hive breeding ground, but that's not really relevant to the story that we're playing. It's all set up for DLC to come. Io faces a similar issue. Io in the lore is the last place the Traveler's Light touched before the collapse, and is viewed as a sacred place by many warlocks. So did dozens of warlocks retreat to Io, searching for some secret power? Io is a moon of Jupiter. This would make it part of the Jovians, which is where the Nine reside. So do we seek out the Nine for their help or their power? No, none of that happens. We go to Io. Ikora Rey, the warlock vanguard, goes from, "Why has God abandoned me?" to religious martyr in 2.5 seconds. And the rest of Io is largely irrelevant to the plot of the Red War. As I played Destiny 2, it dawned on me that this game is less concerned with telling the story of the Red War and more concerned with selling you DLC. And this design choice, yes, design choice, is the foundation for everything Destiny 2 is built on. Why is the game so easy? Why have they taken out difficulty levels? Why have they dumbed down the subclasses? Why have they standardized the weapons? Why have they increased the ease of leveling, of getting gear, to the point that you are tripping over exotics when you do something as mundane as complete a public event that you stumbled on? It's the same exact reason you get a bright engram when you level up past level 20. Because these bright engrams can only be decrypted in the cash shop. It's the same reason that the main story of the game feels like an afterthought, and why the DLC tie-in missions are actually some of the best and most memorable content in the game. It's also why there's more DLC tie-in missions than there are actual missions in the Red War campaign. The story mode of Destiny 2, without getting too into spoilers, starts off meandering and ends with a Deus Ex Machina whose only purpose is to set up for DLC or Destiny 3. The middle of the game is more of the same. It's what you expect from Destiny missions. This is Destiny through and through, for better or for worse. Only focus tested and dumbed down and easier. Don't get me wrong, there is some new mission variety. There is a Halo ODST-like mission, which is completely and utterly unfailable. There are 2 memorable vehicle segments. But for every new thing that they've added, there are 5 go scan this and defend missions, or 5 go kill 3 waves of enemy missions. Bookended by gorgeous, character-driven cinematics that ultimately don't tell us anything we didn't already know. Destiny 2 was supposed to be a game about finding out what it means to be chosen by the light. What is the light? Who are we? Who are they? Who is this? Who's that? What's this? It was gonna answer all the things that Destiny 1 didn't have time to explain because it didn't have time to explain. Instead, we get some very entertaining back and forth conversations between the speaker and Gaul, but no real story, no real questions answered, nothing. And yes, there is a huge difference between watching 2 characters have an enjoyable interaction through dialogue and actually telling a story. The real sin of Destiny 2 isn't that it's criminally easy or dumbed down, or that it's treated like a necessary evil by Bungie. By the end of the game, we are essentially in the same exact place we were at the end of Destiny 1. No worse for wear, only with rebalanced abilities, less gear, and even less interesting exotics. And still, a lot of unanswered questions. The same unfinished plot lines are retraced to to make them relevant again for DLC, and this seems to be the entire point of Destiny 2. To reintroduce plotlines from The Taken King and Rise of Iron, and all of that grimoire that nobody actually read, for people who stopped playing Destiny 1 after the first year, or after the first game. The Red War seems less like a plot in and of itself, and more like a vehicle to reintroduce these plot lines. Which is a shame, because the destruction of the city at the hands of Gaul, and the journey to regain all of what was taken from us, could have been vastly more interesting than what we got. The setup actually reminds me a lot of Dragon Age Origins. In my opinion, one of the best RPGs ever made. You lose everything to an evil armada, and then you need to rally your forces to win the day. Destiny 2 could have been so much more. It could have been more about building something and taking back our home. Instead, this plot is merely a vehicle to reintroduce still unfinished plotlines from Destiny 1 for DLC in Destiny 2. And in that, Destiny 2 is truly disappointing. It's a waste of potential. Destiny 2 is more concerned with creating an easy, addictive, vapidly rewarding experience that will hopefully do a better job of keeping players than Destiny 1 did, so that it can sell them more microtransactions and DLC. I could go on and on and on about all the flaws in this game. I could talk about how the story mode and the adventures and the side quests are not replayable after completing the game. Outside of some randomly generated bounties some of the vendors will have. I can talk about how the strikes are not on the maps, so you can't just go to a certain strike and play it as you want it. No, they're all relegated to a low-level playlist. I could talk about how the Crucible playlists were all condensed into two playlists, Quick Play and Competitive. Quick Play is the home of Team Deathmatch and Control and Kill Confirmed, and Competitive has two elimination game types, Survival and Countdown. And the only choice you get is, do you want to play Competitive or Quick Play? If you don't want to play Kill Confirmed, well, too fucking bad. You're going to play it, and not only are you going to play it, you're going to play it on the same map 5 times in a row. But everything wrong with Destiny 2 is a symptom of dumbing down the game and allowing it to be designed by a corporation and a board of directors and people who don't actually care about the game, but know that Destiny fans will empty their wallets for mediocrity. I've said it before, and I will say it again. This is no longer an issue of don't like, don't buy. This corporate greed mentality is infecting gaming, and Destiny 2 is another tragic victim. A game designed specifically to sell you things, but do so in such an insidious way, most people won't realize they're being played. Like offering bright engrams for free that can only be decrypted at the cash shop. After all, you're already in the cash shop. Why don't you buy something? Look at all these shaders and weapon mods and ornaments. Oh, you didn't get what you wanted out of the free one? Why don't you buy a bundle? $9.99, best value.